Welcome to How to Buy a Home, Part 3, Down Payment and Closing Cost. What are they? How much are they? What do you need to know? Okay, so key takeaway, number one, you may qualify to buy a house with zero or low down payment. That's a good reason why we want you to get pre-approved to see if you qualify to buy a house with zero to low down payment. It is my opinion that down payment is one of the two biggest problems that people have right now that keeps them from trying to buy a house or thinking about a house is because they don't have a down payment. The other is the monthly payment with current rates. But you may not need a down payment. So how much do you need? Short answer, it varies based on your type of loan, your income, your credit score, and even the location of the house. County by county, right? So typical down payments, typically a down payment is somewhere from 0 to 5%. A lot of people will say, oh, you have to have 20% down to buy a house. No, Papa, you don't. You can put 20 down, take care of that mortgage insurance, but typically that's going to be 0 to 5. A conventional loan, 5%, an FHA loan, 3.5%, and then there are down payment assistance programs where you can put down 0. And that's going to be based on location of the house typically, how much you make, what your credit score is, all that stuff. That's why we got pre-approved back in step 2 in the other video, so we know what your number is, okay? Something to keep in mind too, if you're buying a second property for recreation or investment, those down payments are usually from 20 to 25%. Somebody was talking to me last week and they said, yeah, I want to go buy a second house, get an FHA loan and put 3.5% down. Well, no, FHA loans are not for investment properties, they're not for second homes, and you can't put 3.5% down on that. So if you want to buy an investment home or a second house, that cool condo downtown or the lake house, plan on putting 20 to 25% down. Okay, so that's our down payment piece. Let's talk about closing cost. This is where the water's probably a little muddier. Down payment's easy to understand, right? You put money down, price of the house, easy to figure out. Okay, $400,000 house, you're putting 5% down. What is that? $20,000, right? So what are closing costs and how much are they? Closing costs are comprised of a number of components which vary from home to home. Typically, you can expect to pay 2 to 3% of the purchase price towards closing costs in a manner similar to this. I'll put a little thing down here, something like 2 months of taxes for escrow. Escrow is where the mortgage company holds your money in order to pay bills on your behalf, like taxes, insurance. Think of these as like little buckets. They may require 14 months of home insurance up front. If the house burns down 6 months in, you've paid enough insurance to make it worth their while, I guess, to repair it. HOA fees. Sometimes this fee is prorated over the course of the year. Sometimes it's several months worth. Sometimes there's a transfer fee. That all varies from home to home. Loan and lender fees, okay? Your lender makes money too, right? How do they make money? Origination fees, loan fees, stuff like that. Those are closing costs. Tip, look at your lender's fees. And remember, a lower rate is not all of the equation, right? What kind of fees are they charging you? Credit report fee, appraisal fee, flood certificate fee. There's all kinds of little ticky-tacky fees. Escrow, title fees. What are we paying the title company to draw up the paperwork, research the deed, all that stuff. Title insurance, any other additional fees like state fees, county fees, bank fees, overnight fees, broker fees, blah, blah, blah. There are a lot of ticky-tack little $35, $45, $75 fees on up to where it's typically 2 to 3% of the purchase price of the home. So, James, are you telling me that if we're gonna buy a $400,000 house and we're putting 20% down and we're gonna put 20 grand down and closing cost are 2 to 3% of that, so that's 2% of 400, what is that gonna be? 1% would be 4,000, right? So $8,000 to $12,000 in closing, so I need 20 plus 12, $32,000-ish to buy a $400,000 house. Potentially. I did that math in my head, so don't hold me to that. Potentially, yes. So what happens if you don't have closing cost? That is a great question. If you didn't have closing cost in 2020, 2021, you're probably screwed. Okay, if you made under a certain amount and you could apply for some down payment assistance programs, some stuff like THDA, some of these overlay loans where you could finance your closing cost, maybe then, but even then, they basically in 2020, if you were buying a house, it was gonna be conventional or cash, unless you had a very, very, very persuasive real estate agent that could get people to take these other loan types. that were not as highly coveted. That's one of the good things about the market we've seen in the last 12 months is the fact that sellers have been willing to offer more concessions, and they have been willing to pay some, if not all, of closing to sell their house. You know, we understand rates are higher, payments are higher, people are already stretched trying to come up with a down payment. So sometimes the seller is willing to help with closing cost. Now, that's why you need to have a great buyer's agent that can look at that particular property, that area, how long has it been on market, and let's get a game plan when we write that offer. What do we think we can get away with asking and get accepted? And how am I gonna pitch that to the other side to where they think that's a great deal? That's where you need an agent, okay? To try to minimize how much you're coming out of pocket, okay? Are you with me? Okay, so sometimes we can get the sellers to pay closing costs. Now, depending on what the market does the rest of this year, that may get harder again. And it will at some point, and at other points it will be easier. But right now, closing costs paid by the seller, it's on the table, and it's something that we're negotiating through every transaction, okay? Down payment, again, if you don't have a down payment saved up, 3.5% to 5%, what kind of down payment assistance programs can your lender and your agent point you to, okay? So regardless, there's hope for everybody. You just need to talk to somebody to help you get a plan for that. So, any questions, please ask me. I would love to answer your questions on this, and maybe I could think of a story or two to add on later on to the video of what we can do with closing costs and down payment assistance. So tune in for step 4 coming soon.